Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Sean Yao.
The big stories tonight. Friday's earthquake that hit Myanmar and Thailand has claimed 1,700 lives. In Myanmar's Mandalay City, rescue efforts are still underway, but as one news outlet reported, the cries for help are dwindling and the stench of death has filled the air. 4 Filipinos have been reported missing in Myanmar.
The Department of Transportation has formed a new task force to review the public transport modernization program. Now, will this initiative finally see the implementation of the program, which has been heavily contested and delayed since 2017?
And more alleged fake names surface in the office of the Vice President's use of its confidential funds. This time around, inspired by grocery items with names like Miko Harina, Sala Kasim, Ralph Josh Bacon, and Beverly Claire Pampano.
Ang hirap pa po talaga now to accept this kind of situation, especially it has been 3 days and then knowing na wala pa lang nagsisearch sa area nila despite all the requests na baka nandun sila.
The death toll in Myanmar has breached 1,700, with scores wounded and hundreds still missing. Search, rescue, and retrieval operations are ongoing following a powerful 7.7 magnitude quake last week.
The civil war raging in the country is hampering efforts to find survivors, but help is finally trickling in. There are still 4 Filipinos unaccounted for.
In Thailand, where the tremor was also felt, Filipinos have been marked safe. But as expected, there is trauma that cannot be shaken off as they recount their quake experiences. The big story tonight from mobile journalist Julie Baiza.
Lakas sa lindol. Lumilindol. Iyo, nagana yung mga sa building.
This was the scene witnessed by the Philippine Police Attaché in Bangkok, Thailand, when the magnitude 7.7 quake struck last Friday. That time, Colonel Dominador Matalang was in the 28th floor of a building.
Huwag kang magpanik. Huwag kang magpanik.
But their resolve started to waver when after more than a minute, shaking can still be felt.
Hindi rin tayo makakagamit ng elevator.
Kasi yung after sir, yung delikado sir, ito building na to, hindi matibay ito sir.
Hindi.
Colonel Matalang has been in Bangkok for almost 3 years now. For him, this will definitely be one of his most unforgettable experiences in the Thai capital.
First time na lumindol sa Bangkok, ang lakas. Yung pinto, nag-ano pa oh.
After more than 4 minutes, Colonel Matalang was finally able to go out of their office. But as they made their way out through the emergency exit, water leaked from the building's pipes. They were also met with residents scrambling to escape. Fortunately, all employees of the Philippine Police Attaché are safe. Marco Orbegoso, an elementary teacher in Bangkok, also recalled his experience during the quake. Fortunately as well for him, he was able to come out of the earthquake unscathed and was even able to fly back to the Philippines for his vacation.
Friday po na-cancel lahat po ng flight. So Saturday, nag-resume po lahat so kaya po nakabalik na po ako ngayon sa Pilipinas.
Meanwhile, in Ground Zero, Myanmar, 4 Pinoys are still missing after the quake. 2 of them, a couple, live in Sky Villa condominium in Mandalay that toppled during the quake. Veronica, a relative, knew something bad happened when Alexis and Edsid Adalid failed to contact them by lunchtime, which was typically when they would get in touch with their family in the Philippines via video call.
Ang hirap pa po talaga now to accept this kind of situation, especially it has been 3 days and then knowing na wala pa lang nagsisearch sa area nila despite all the requests na baka nandun sila. Since na-identify naman po yung location is sana po meron na pong action that people there or Filipinos will be able to go there as fast as they can because this is about life and time.
This is not the Philippines. We're not the ones who are obligated to get it's the Myanmar authorities. So we'll push. We will push for them, no? Kaya mapapatagal Not because mabagal o ayaw natin, but because it's even hard to get to Myanmar now. Pupunta pa ng Bangkok o Thailand mo yan, tutawid. So, I'm gonna contact the Myanmar authorities, yung meron siyang embassy dito.
The Department of Foreign Affairs has since assured the families of the missing and affected Filipino that they are doing all they can to help. The death toll from the earthquake has so far been listed at 1,700. Authorities expect this number to rise in the coming days as a tremor brought down scores of buildings and other infrastructure. In one report from the Associated Press, people on the ground in Mandalay, which is Myanmar's second largest city, the smell of death ash permeated the air, and the cries for help that resounded over the weekend has now lessened.
The Philippine Embassy in Thailand is reporting no fatalities among foreigners in the nation. Let's get the latest from Ambassador Millicent Cruz Paredes. Magandang gabi po sa inyo, Ambassador. Kamusta ang mga kababayan natin dyan?
Magandang gabi sa inyo, ladies, and to all your listeners. Well, the good news is until now we have not received any news of fatality or injury among the Filipino community here. As a matter of fact, ang Thai authorities already said that there are no foreigners affected by the big quake.
Well, we hear news of those kababayans in Myanmar. May contact po ba kayo sa Myanmar?
Yeah, but I have no jurisdiction over Myanmar. We have our Philippine Embassy in Yangon, and that is the one that's doing the coordination with the government of Myanmar. But for me here, I'm able to do my bit by also, nudging a bit from our end through the Embassy of Myanmar here in Bangkok. So today, I was able to meet their new ambassador kasi today and tomorrow, they opened their book of condolences. So I went to the Embassy of Myanmar this afternoon, and I was able to meet their newly arrived ambassador. So whatever support we can give from here, from Bangkok, then we will do that.
In as much as the situation there is calm and everybody's accounted for, perhaps we can assist our kababayans in Myanmar. Ano po bang klaseng assistance ang pwede nating maibigay doon?
Oh, I really don't know what kind of assistance we are offering, but I understand there has been an interagency meeting in Manila, and we are. I'm just not privy to the details, but I understand that we are gonna send assistance. So perhaps you could ask our Chargé d'Affaires in Yangon, Philippine Embassy in Yangon. He would have more information on this. But
yes, pasensya na, Ambassador, because we're concerned, and since you are with us. But just the same, what can you say po about, because here in the Philippines, we're all worried about the big one. What can you say about how the Thai authorities responded to this natural disaster? Mukhang magaling po ang nagawa nila in terms of assistance and generally, paano po nyo ma-assess?
Well, in general, I think we are prepared. The Philippines is more prepared, I think, because we have been doing duck cover and hold drills. So I think by doing regular drills, then we are able to train our people what to do in times of emergency. Kasi when things start shaking, minsan magpapanik ka na lang. So that was what we saw here in Bangkok when that happened. Kasi all of a sudden, everybody was out in the streets, and yung mga personal stories nila, they were saying the moment they felt the earthquake, they all went out. Sabi ko, ganun ba? Kasi sa amin, ang turo sa amin sa Manila, we have to wait, we have to stop.
Yeah.
And look for cover. And then only when it stops shaking, then that's the only time we should move. Kasi pagka nagsha-shake pa and we start running, baka lalo tayong ma-injure, then it might create bigger problems. But I think, yes, the Thai authorities have responded very well. They have immediately set up the structure to assist, to help, to make it easier for people to access services. Yung mga na-disrupt na services like the train service, slowly they have resumed. Last night, there were several concerts at the park in order to, boost morale, lift the spirits of the people of Bangkok.
How about the integrity, if I may interrupt, Ambassador, the integrity of the structures? Have there been inspections? And also about
Yes.
our very own embassy there?
I'll pipe in before you answer, Ambassador, because I do actually have some family in Bangkok, and they said that the government has actually set up so fast, like some sort of call hotline and even a WhatsApp group where you can report the cracks in your building.
Correct.
So some
Yes.
engineers will come ASAP. Can you tell us more about that?
There is a thing called Trafifondo that's set up by the BMA, the Bangkok Metropolitan Authority. So that Trafifondo, you can send text messages to report anything. Kunyari, niloko ka ng taxi driver, you can report. Or you see a leaking pipe in the streets and you can report there. So I understand that was also, that's now being used to report cracks in buildings, whatever earthquake-related concerns you have, then you can convey it through the Trafifondo. I understand that the Thai authorities also have deployed engineers to different buildings just to precisely inspect the structural integrity of buildings. And they have done damage assessments too. And it's been revealed as of today that 591 homes, 92 hospitals, 58 schools, 66 temples, and 27 government buildings were damaged. So I would think they would be addressing that already. So, tama kayo. I could see efficiency in how they are responding. And I think this experience would also teach the general population, not only of Bangkok, but of the whole Kingdom of Thailand, on how to properly respond or behave or address when you are right there in the middle of an earthquake. Kasi tayo sa Manila, di ba, parang lagi nating nararamdaman yan. For example, in the DFA, I've already experienced several times where we had to evacuate the DFA, the building, because of earthquakes. So I think this would be a very good experience for Thailand to further train themselves on how to respond to earthquakes. Kasi from the time I arrived here in 2020, I've never experienced an earthquake here, and the Thais have always told me there has been no big earthquakes here. So
and Ambassador, as Cess was telling earlier, all this disaster really sparked conversations about the big one that could potentially happen in the Philippines, a big earthquake.
Yes.
And based on what we saw in Thailand, the building that collapsed was actually a building that was under construction, meaning the existing buildings, the high structures their structural integrity is quite good. So are there any practices that we can learn from the Thai government in terms of building codes to make own structures could withstand natural disasters like earthquakes?
I would think we have had our building code since earlier pa. And we have been trying to prepare for the big one. But I think, of course, now that we've seen it in Thailand, perhaps it's also high time to, start inspecting if if the building code is really being implemented and being regulated properly. So, we should not have shortcuts. It's highly risky to have shortcuts. So I think this should be a wake-up call also for Metro Manila, for the rest of the Philippines, to really strictly implement the building code, because this is what saved lives here in Thailand, especially in Bangkok. Bangkok has the greater Bangkok metropolitan area has a population of 17 million people, most of whom work and live in high-rise buildings. So given a 7.3 magnitude earthquake that hit Thailand and Bangkok, and yet those who perished were concentrated only in the building that was being constructed. There were no major collapse of buildings then. I think we should learn from that.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for talking to us, and keep safe. That was Ambassador Millicent Cruz Paredes of the Philippine Embassy in Thailand.
Thank you.
What happened in Myanmar can happen elsewhere, including the Philippines. The question is, are we ready for it, especially at the certainty of the so-called big one striking anytime? The Office of Civil Defense cites a JICA and PHIVOLCS report back in the early 2000s that paints a grim scenario in case of a magnitude 7.2 quake generated by the West Valley Fault. Between 30 and 50,000 will immediately perish, with more than 100,000 seriously injured. Millions of people will be displaced, and massive fires and building collapses will occur. OCD Administrator Ariel Nepomuceno says there is no better time than now to prepare, starting with a thorough check of the structural integrity of residences and public buildings.
Kung handa po ba tayo o hindi, dalawa po kasi yung level ng paghahanda. Yung isang level, yan yung lagi natin nakikita, yung dock over and hold, yung pagsasanay ng ating mga mamamayan kung ano yung dapat gawin sa unang mga minuto ng lindol. At yung pagtugon din ng ating national government agencies, kasama ng LGUs, kasama ng ilang private sector. Ang mas importante po talaga, kaya pagtulong-tulungan natin, kung paano yung first level of preparations, which is yung paggawa po natin ng mga engineering solutions. Ibig sabihin, dapat maging matibay talaga ang mga bahay, struktura, buildings, na talagang sumunod yan sa mga mahigpit na provisions, panuntunan ng building code na dapat kaya ng mga gusali natin, ng mga tulay natin, ang lakas kahit hanggang 8.5 magnitude earthquake.
The OCD is also encouraging everyone to make use of the app hazardhunter.ph to check if their homes, offices, and other spaces are near fault lines or landslide-prone areas.
We're going to take a quick break, but coming up next, the Public Transport Modernization Program will undergo another review as ordered by the Department of Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon. We'll talk to Secretary Dizon in just a bit about the future of this program. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. The Transportation Department has formed a task force that will one more look at the PTMP, or Public Transport Modernization Program. The review committee is expected to come up with a recommendation next week and has as members Transportation Undersecretaries Mon Reyes and Steve Pastor, Assistant Secretary Jojo Reyes, LTO Chief Vigor Mendoza, and new Office of Transportation Cooperatives Chief, former Cainta Mayor Mon Ilagan. DOTR Chief Vince Dizon says that the LTFB Chairman Teofilo Guadis III is not in the mix to give the task force a perspective. Dizon also denies a shakeup in the LTFRB and considers the agency as just another stakeholder in the issue. Meantime, the Secretary also met with Manibela Chairman Mar Valbuena to hear out the transport group's objections to the modernization program.
Marami silang mga nakita at naranasan na pagkukulang at mga problema sa modernization program. At yon ay in-acknowledge natin. Inaamin natin na kahit tayo, marami tayong nakitang mga problema.
Ang importante po talaga rito ay maibalik muna sa amin yung aming mga at least provisional authority na makabiyahe kami. So, habang nagda-dialogue tayo, may pinangahawakan din kaming mga papel na nakakabiyahe na talaga kami.
All right, let's flesh out this issue some more with DOTR Chief Vince Dizon. Great to talk to you again, Secretary. Ito na yung part 2. But perhaps tell us how you broke the impasse, or is the impasse broken with Manibela?
Good evening po. I think what happened today was very important, and what's been happening over the last couple of weeks, because we've been spending a lot of time talking to various stakeholders in the transport sector. And today, like the other meetings that we've had with several other groups, we listened. We listened to our drivers and operators, our transport leaders, and asked them what they think is the real situation on the ground with respect to the PUV modernization program. Some feel that the program helps them, while others feel that there are a lot of challenges that they continue to face. So I think this is all part of a very productive way of communicating with the stakeholders in order to find solutions to prevailing challenges, because there are challenges to this program, and we have to first of all acknowledge them, and we find a way forward together. So I think that's the best thing that has come out of these past couple of weeks of us just listening to the various groups. And today we listened to Mar Valbuena and Manibela, and we were able to hear some similar things that we've heard from others, but also some new things as well. So, but all of this taken together, I think, helps us find a way forward and find solutions to prevailing challenges and problems.
And now this will be the problem of Mon Ilagan, who you've dati nating kasamahan sa ABS-CBN na ngayon ay magiging in charge of the cooperatives. Tama po ba?
Hindi lang naman po si ASEC Mon, former Mayor Mon, ang may problema nito. Lahat po kami. And he's part of I think a very strong team that we formed today to give some fresh perspective to this. They're all experienced in the transport sector in their own ways. Mon, especially ASEC Mon, especially since he was a former local executive for a long time, in Cainta, which obviously has its own experience and challenges with respect to public utility vehicles. So I think ASEC Mon, together with our USECs and including ASEC Vigor Mendoza as well, who before he was LTO chief was actually a representative in Congress for the Isang Utak United Transport Groups. So I think all of these people will be able to not only bring in fresh perspective and fresh ideas, also, find a way forward. I think that is the most important thing right now. After listening to many, if not all, of our transport group stakeholders, now is the time to start finding solutions and moving forward.
Not to preempt the results of the investigation that is due next week, Secretary Vince, but if I may just ask you to bullet point, what are the top 3 concerns you would say that everybody shares? These are the issues that are across the board amongst the different transport groups. Would it be really mawawala yung prangkisa sa individuals? Because based on our interviews, that yun yung lumalabas.
Well, the individual franchises, actually, because of the order of DOTR in the past, last year in April, when they prescribed a deadline in April of last year. For all intents, yun na nga po ang nangyari, no? But I think the what we have heard, no, from various groups, that for those who were not able to meet the deadline and were not part of this move to consolidate, no, into cooperatives and corporations, the sad thing and the sad reality is hindi na po sila nakakabiyahe as registered PUVs, no? And for all intents, they are now, kung bumabiyahe man sila, they are, for all intents, colorum vehicles, no? So ito ang pinakamalaking issue na tingin ko kailangang sagutin natin, no? Because there are still a significant number of PUV operators and drivers and who have been in the industry for so long, who are currently at this point, because of that order last year to consolidate, are no longer legally operating as PUVs, no? And yun nga po ang dulog ng hindi lamang ng Manibela pero ng iba ding mga grupo. So this is one issue, no, that needs to be addressed, no? How do we address this issue of those that were unable to join and consolidate and meet the deadline of April of last year? So that is one major issue. The second major issue is the roots, no? Yung mga, to me, based on what I have learned and what I have heard, the foundation of the PUV modernization program is the route rationalization program. Meaning, kung ikaw ay magta-transition sa mga bagong PUVs, kailangan ma-rationalize yung ruta mo para yung ruta mo magbibigay ng financial viability dahil sa mas mahal na gastos mo sa pagbibigay ng bagong jeep, sa pag-uutang, etc. No? So, and that is still in a situation where there are still a lot of challenges and problems on the ground. In fact, not all those who have consolidated and even bought modern PUVs have final routes and in place to this day. So that is a major problem as well that needs to be resolved. And also, I think the third is we have to look at really the financial consequences of the program. No? Are our PUV operators who have consolidated, are they able to make themselves financially viable and also pay back their loans? Because marami po sa ating mga kooperatiba at mga korporasyon ay umutang po, no? Umutang sa mga government financial institutions. Ang iba sa kanila ay nag-self-finance, umutang din sa ibang mga kooperatiba. Kumusta po sila? Sila po ba ay nakakabayad ng kanilang mga utang? Sila po ba ay kumikita? Nasesweldohan po ba nila at nabibigyan po ba nila ng sapat na dividendo o ng shares sa kita ang kanilang mga member operators at drivers? So these are very important questions, no, that need to be looked at. And if there are issues there, which apparently there are, then they have to be solved very clearly and very methodically. So yan po ang trabaho ng ating Committee of Five. Pero marami na po silang nakuhang inputs nitong mga nakaraang linggo at hopefully po sa mga susunod na linggo, hopefully after Holy Week, magkakaroon na tayo ng clarity sa kanilang mga recommendations.
Well, Secretary, the DOT are also vowed to look into the slow consolidation of these jeepneys, especially after you found out nga na less than half ang nakapag-consolidate pa lang, 43% yung exact number. Have you identified already the actual cause of delay? Because some of them have been pending since 2023. And with that, will you be allowing all these unconsolidated jeepneys to renew their provisional authority to operate?
Yung pag-renew po ng provisional authority, yan po ang isang mga tinitignan naming mga interventions, no. And yan po ay ayoko lang pong pangunahan yung recommendations ng committee natin. But tinitingnan po lahat yan. At yan na rin po ay naging suggestion ng iba nating mga kasamahan sa transport groups, kasama na rin ng Manibela at iba pang mga grupo, no. Pag-aaralan pong mabuti yan. Pero yung pong mga nagbigay ng kanilang intention para mag-consolidate, na hindi pa na-aproba ng LTFRB, kailangan din po nating tignan din yan. Bakit? Bakit sila hindi nakakapagkumpleto ng requirements? Ano ba ang mga challenges? Bakit po sila hindi nakakakuha ng financing? No, marami pong issues. Kasama na rin dyan yung hindi pa na-aprobahang mga route rationalization at mga tinatawag nilang local public transport plans. No? So napakadami pong moving parts o napakaraming aspeto nitong programang to na talagang kailangan ayusin. Kaya hindi po talaga pwedeng ura-urada na lang tayong magbibigay ng mga suhestyon na hindi natin nakikita ang epekto sa isa't isa, no, sa lahat ng mga aspeto ng programa. So and that is why we need these 5 people to really come together, continue the consultations, talk to the other stakeholders such as the financial institutions that have lent hundreds of millions already to this program over the course of the last couple of years. No, we have to also talk to them as well and see what the challenges are there. So madami po talaga, pero makakaasa po tayo na within the month of April, I think hopefully after Holy Week, we will have something concrete already. It's not going to be a perfect solution. No, I don't think we will get to that point, but we need to have some concrete steps moving forward, and we need to make decisions, even difficult decisions in the coming weeks.
All right. Now let's go to another issue, Secretary, yung Tanimbala. Meron na po bang conclusion or findings kayo dyan?
Nung pong last Friday, we together with the head of the OTS, former PNP General Ato Bisnar, we responded to 3 reported cases on social media, no, on alleged Tanimbala incidents. And I myself went to OTS, I reviewed the videos. Fortunately, naka-video po lahat nito, no, from the X-ray machine images as well as the videos of the actual searches of the bags of the passengers. At nakita po natin na in these 3 cases, no, hindi po Tanimbala ang nangyari, no. For various reasons, may nailagay po o naiwan na mga bala, may yung dalawa tigi-isa at may isa na 4 na bala, no. In the investigation of the authorities, nakita po na talaga pong either nakalimutan nila or may nagpadala sa kanila na unfortunately may laman na bala, no. Ito po yung case ni Lola Mary, na nakita ang isang bala sa Clark International Airport, papunta po siya ng Taipei. Yung bala po mismo, and I'm sure you've seen the videos, pinasok po siya intentionally sa loob ng isang lata ng bagoong at nakaseal po mismo yung lata. At inamin po ni Lola Mary, nakakaawa naman po siya dahil siya po ang naperwisyo dito at nahirapan. Pinadala lang daw po sa kanya ng isa sa mga kamag-anak nila, no. So in these 3 cases nakita po natin na hindi po ito, no. But we continue to be vigilant na hindi na mauulit ito, and we have the full trust and confidence in the leadership of General Ato Bisnar because he will really make sure na hindi na babalik ito at mauulit ito. But I think what's important dito sa nakita nating 3 case na ito, kailangan din po talaga tayong manawagan sa mga kababayan natin na mag-iingat, no. Mag-iingat sa mga nakakalimutan sa loob ng bag. I-check lagi ang bag bago lumipad, bago pumunta ng airport. At lalong-lalo na mag-iingat tayo, as in the case of Lola Mary, mag-iingat tayo doon sa mga pinapadala sa atin na minsan hindi din tayo sigurado kung anong nandyan. At yun nga po, in the case of Lola Mary, I don't know for whatever reason na bakit may bala doon, pero kitang-kita po, no, doon sa video, binuksan yung lata, binuksan yung supot ng bagoong, merong bala sa loob, pati nga po yung bala naka-plastic wrapper pa, no. So as to the motivations, we are still investigating that right now. But we are vigilant, and especially now na padating po ang Semana Santa, we will be even more vigilant. But we also ask the public to also be as equally vigilant, no? And be responsible for their bags, for their belongings, and for the items that they bring with them. when they are going to travel.
They really need to triple check their belongings. But Secretary, is it possible that the modus is happening with the porters? Kasi yung iba sa kanila sinabi baka dun daw nangyari yung tanimbal. Have you investigated that already as well?
We are currently investigating as well. I asked General Bisnar to review all the CCTV footages in Naiya and Clark to see if there were any suspected instances where a porter might have slipped a bullet or ano. But at least in these 3 cases, kasi po kasama na rin yung pag-interview sa mga pasahero, parang hindi po ganun ang nangyari dito sa tatlong kaso to. And in fact, si Laura Mary, tsaka yung isa pa pong nating kababayan, nung pong sila'y nakitaan at kinumpiska, sila naman po ay nakasakay naman po at nakarating sa kanilang mga lugar. And again, as a reminder to all our travelers, our kababayans who are traveling, especially during the Holy Week, alam niyo po kung hindi po gagawin ng OTS ang kanilang trabaho at papalusutin po nila ito, mas magkakaproblema po sila sa kanilang patutunguhan. Sinabi nga ho namin, no, yung kababayan natin na nahulihan ng 4 na bala, papunta po siyang Singapore, no. Kung nahuli po siya sa Singapore, ang penalty po sa Singapore, and we all know how strict Singapore law is, no, and enforcement is, 5 to 10 years imprisonment and 6 6 na beses po siyang i-cane publicly kung siya po nahulihan ito. Kaya kailangan po maintindihan ng mga kababayan natin to. Kailangan po talagang mag-ingat din tayo. Pero extra vigilant po ang ating mga airport personnel to make sure na wala na po ito.
Secretary Vince, since we're on the matter of airports, medyo nag-viral yung video mo, no? Saying na you have some plans, at least not major plans, but minor plans to improve the situation over in the Siargao airport terminal. Can you give us an update?
Minor lang.
Minor muna, and then we'll go to the major, which is, kamusta yung bundling plans? I know it's early days.
Oh, no, well, it's not really minor kasi sama po talaga ng lagay ng Siargao Airport. No, I was there 2 Sundays ago. And really, nakakaawa po talaga yung mga kababayan natin. That's why, immediately, halimbawa po, siguro po, yung sinasabi nyo pong nag-viral, ito pong VIP lounge na nandun. Talagang nakakadismaya din. Hirap na po yung mga kababayan natin. And yet, meron pang although maliit naman na space, kasi maliit nga yung airport, yung terminal, sayang pa rin. No? At ngayon po, giniba na po ito nung weekend. At ngayon po, we were able, I think, to add about 25, 26 seats. May dagdag din pong, kahit pa paano may dagdag pong upuan yon at kahit sino po ay pwedeng umupo doon. No? Meron din po tayong minatanggal na redundant na x-ray. Makakadagdag din po tayo doon ng dagdag na upuan at dagdag na space para gumuwag yung airport. But in the short term po, modular expansion po tayo. This is something that we've done already in Laguindingan Airport in Cagayan de Oro prior to the PPP of that airport, which is now will be turned over to Aboitiz Infrastructure on April 26. Pero meron pong binagawa doon ang kaap ng modular expansion para lang po lumuwag ng konti. Ganun din po ang gagawin natin sa Siargao. No? We will start in the next few months. And hopefully, within maybe the next 6 to 7 months, matatapos na po yung modular expansion, which will add, I think, another 500 plus seats. So magiging 700 na po from 200. So medyo giginhawa po ng konti within the next couple of months itong sitwasyon natin sa Siargao. But as Sean pointed out, Siargao is part of our bundling of airports, and we are looking at really offering this up for PPP very soon, no? So hopefully po mapabilis na rin natin to para talagang makagawa na tayo ng mas magandang passenger terminal at mapaganda na po natin final ang ating top tourist destination sa Pilipinas.
Secretary, aside from the Siargao Airport, are there other airports already as well that the DOTR is planning to renovate and to fix?
Opo. In fact, I've been closely working po with the Department of Tourism. I met with Secretary Frasco a few weeks ago, and we both agreed that the priority should be our tourist destinations. So, Busuanga, Katiklan, which will already be upgraded by San Miguel Corporation starting this year. Makikita na rin po natin ang upgrade sa Katiklan Airport. Calibo is another airport. Obviously, the bigger airports like Iloilo, Davao, Puerto Princesa, Bicol, Bacolod, these are Tacloban, marami po tayong mga airports. And even to the north, even as far as Batanes, we're looking at that kasi yan po ang mga major tourist attractions natin na kailangan talagang ayusin.
Okay, Secretary, we're all bracing for the EDSA rehab that will finally happen or start in April. Tama ba? Ano po ang mga timeline?
Opo, sabi po ng DPWH sometime in April, although inaayos pa po namin yung final plans and the mitigating measures that we want to put in place prior to the start of the EDSA. Actually, it's not really a rehab lang, it's really an overhaul of the entire EDSA system, no? So highway. So talaga pong dapat mag-brace for impact po tayo, kasama po tayong lahat dyan, no? Na ang opisina po ng DOTR ay nasa EDSA mismo. It's along EDSA itself, no, sa may bandang Ortigas, no, malapit sa Camp Crame. So kailangan po talaga tayong magpasensya po dito kasi it's I'm not going to sugarcoat it, no. It's not going to be pleasant for the next year and a half, maybe even 2 years. But what we plan to do upon the instructions of the President is to really make this as the least amount of disruption as possible sa ating mga motorists at sa ating mga commuters. So, yung po talaga ang magagawa natin dito. At we will try to put in some mitigating interventions to help our motorists and our commuters handle the major EDSA overhaul, which is coming in April and will last for at least a year and a half, maybe longer.
Secretary, some villages can open their gates to motorists.
We are looking at those possibilities po, no? And ano po talaga, no, we are really talking to a lot of groups, racking all our brains to find ways to really to make this as it's going to be painful, make no mistake, no, and I will not sugarcoat it, but at least we lessen the pain a little bit. But after the pain, we can assure the public po, the President assures the public, Secretary Bonoan of DPWH assures the public that malaki po ang ginhawa talaga once na matapos po itong buong overhaul ng EDSA. It's not been done in the last, I think, 45 years.
Yeah, we feel it.
So I think the President feels it's about time.
All right. Well, we thank you so much and we're hoping for a part 3 with you dahil madami pa. Marami pong salamat. DOTR Secretary Vince Dizon.
All right, now from transportation, let's shift gears to food. Hunger in the Philippines rises to 27.2%, the highest since the pandemic or September of 2020. According to the social weather stations, this is 6 percentage points above the 21.2% recorded in February 2025. The SWS survey conducted the survey between March 15 and 20 among 1,800 respondents also showed that Filipino families experienced involuntary hunger at least once in the past 3 months. Meantime, the Department of Agriculture has cut the maximum suggested retail price for imported rice from 49 pesos to 45 pesos per kilo, citing falling global prices. On the other hand, pork prices remain steep, with many retailers selling above the MSRP. The DA is also planning to put price caps on imported garlic before June.
While definitely in areas you cannot discount that there is hunger because of, but I think that's more of economics na eh. It is not agriculture related eh. Kasi we have almost most of everything. We will stop at MSRP 45 for the next two months hanggang matapos ng harvest season para naman yung mga traders na bumibili at mga rice mills na bumibili sa mga farmers ng palay ay hindi mag-speculate, di ba, or matakot at bumili sila ng palay naman sa presyong hindi malulugi ang ating farmers.
Time to pause for another very quick break, but right after that, lawmakers who are preparing for the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte find more bizarre names linked to the OVP and the DepEd's use of its confidential funds. The details when we return. Keep it here.
welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on The Big Story. Now, over in the Netherlands, former President Rodrigo Duterte's lead legal counsel says he's aiming to get the case against his client dismissed before the next trial in September. Now, let's get the latest on the ground from News 5 correspondent Mon Gualvez. Hi, Mon. How's the situation over there at The Hague? Mon, sorry, I think you're on mute, so we'll have to double check your audio.
There, I think he's fixing
Hi,
it.
ladies, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Hi. Supporters of former President Rodrigo Duterte continue to arrive here in front of the ICC detention center in The Hague. Many of them came from different parts of Europe, while some are from Dubai. But as you can see behind me, this is actually less compared to the previous weekends, wherein this part of the park almost got filled with the supporters. They're all calling for the return of the former president to the Philippines.
Filipinos going to Scheveningen prison here in The Hague, Netherlands are being heavily guarded by the Dutch police. But it's not to prohibit them from being here, but to ensure they don't affect pedestrians, bicycles, and other vehicles along the roads. Yesterday, some Pinoys gathered and prayed outside the detention facility. They're from different countries in Europe.
Bakit mahal natin siya? Lalo tayo nasa labas. He is the first president that we feel that we belong to the Philippine government. Agree ba kayo dyan? Yes!
Absent this weekend were relatives of the former president. His common-law wife, Hanilet Avancenia, and daughter Kitty Duterte did manage to visit him last week, as well as Vice President Sara Duterte, who joined by her mother Elizabeth Zimmerman here in The Hague. Yesterday, Senator Robin Padilla already returned to the Philippines. But we are able to have a sit-down interview with him where he said it's the former president's order for him to return to the Philippines to campaign. Padilla admits Digong's arrest affected their party, PDP, adversely.
Ito po ang partido na walang pera. Okay, kailangan po nating liwanagin. Ngayon, yung aming #1 crowd drawer, nakakulong para kaming inalisan ng ulo. Kasi po yung aming ulo, na nasa kanya po lahat ang katangian para dumating ang tao, wala po. Sa totoo lamang po, para po kaming manok na walang ulo na paikot-ikot.
He actually hoped he would come home with the former president as Padilla believes he was wrongfully arrested.
Tayo po ay unang republika sa Asia. Inaamin po ba natin na wala tayong gobyerno ngayon at kailangan natin ng tulong ng mga tiga-dahig patungkol sa batas? Huwag na po tayong matalinuhan dito. Matanda na si Mayor, nakita ko kung paano. Hindi ko akalaing magagawa yun ng isang naka-uniforming tao sa dating Pangulong 80 years old.
Padilla refused to comment about the impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte, though he expressed concern if the trial should happen in the upcoming 20th Congress.
Tatatlo kami. Kasi siguradong papasok naman si Senator Bato, si Senator Go. Kung tatatlo lang kami, baka hindi namin makuha yung bilang Kasi numbers po ang labanan sa Senado po ay numbers Hindi yan dahil sa magaling ka dun sa, kahit ba magkikisay ka rin sa plenaryo, kung hindi ka naman makakakuha ng numero. Yan po ang politika dyan
Meanwhile, the prosecution in the Duterte case isn't bothered by the daily gatherings in support of the former president. Attorney Cristina Conti also says they're still waiting on any motion or request for his interim release. The Duterte camp is yet to speak on the matter.
Ladies, few minutes before we go on air, we got a chance to at least corner and ask some questions to the former president's lead legal counsel, Attorney Nicholas Kaufman, when he entered the ICC detention center, and he gave us some few points with regard to the case. First, he is actually confident with one of the arguments that they are going to raise, and that is about the jurisdiction, that the Philippines is actually no longer a member of the ICC when he got arrested during this in the past weeks. At isa pa sa mga sinasabi din ng abogado ni dating Pangulong Duterte is yung issue naman na nananawagan sila sa public na iwasan na daw pag-usapan yung judicial process. Hindi siya nagbigay ng iba pang information with regard to their strategy. At ang pangatlong punto naman is hindi pa rin nila sinasabi kung kailan sila magsusumite ng motion or request for the interim release of the former president. That means hindi pa sila talaga nakakapag-submit nito. At pang-apat, sinasabi din naman ni Attorney Kaufman that the former president is very happy and he would want to express his gratitude to all the Filipinos and supporters, especially those na nag-travel pa daw ng malayo, makarating lang dito sa The Hague just to celebrate with him together with his birthday last weekend and last Friday. At alam daw niya yung nangyaring mainit na pagpapakita ng suporta at pagmamahal sa kanya during his birthday. We are still waiting right now if the family members of former president will arrive here in the detention center, although we have no confirmation yet dahil alam naman natin per schedule kasi ito. At the same time talagang limited lamang yung mga pinapayagan sa loob. Pero kasi nga last Friday pa nang huling may makabisita at makapasok sa loob ng ICC detention center. Back to you, ladies.
All right, well, thank you very much for that update. That was Mon Gualvez reporting to us live from the Netherlands.
The House has uncovered more unusual names linked to the Office of the Vice President's confidential funds, this time dubbed Team Grocery for market-inspired names. From the previous snack and fruit-like names, now there's Beverly Claire Pampano, Nico Harina, Patty Ting, and Ralph Josh Bacon. Patty Ting. What is that? Patty. Patty for burger patties. Okay. And none of them have records with the Philippine Statistics Authority. Deputy Majority Leader Paolo Ortega mocked the list, saying the fake names seem intentional. Even Malacanang weighed in, saying they aren't the only ones confused about the list. House Prosecutor Bel Zamora says it will strengthen their impeachment case as the prosecution team prepares for the July 30 trial.
All right, that's it for the show tonight. But before we completely say goodbye, of course, Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. It is the end of Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr.
All right, so with that, we are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you for watching. Good night.